All right, so I want to start now by telling you about what happened yesterday. So, one of the largest, most important newspapers in the Netherlands, this is basically like the New York Times of the Dutch, and it's called the NRC. And the NRC newspaper released a bombshell article that has the Zionists losing their mind, okay? And so the article basically was about 7 renowned scientists. Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. The NRC spoke to 7 renowned genocide researchers about Gaza. They are not nearly as divided as public opinion. Without exception, they qualify the Israeli actions as, quote, genocidal. And according to them, almost all their colleagues agree with that. So let's go ahead and read some quotes from this. A quarter of the babies in Gaza are acutely malnourished, and Israel is refusing to allow thousands of trucks carrying emergency aid into the country. The military is shooting at anyone who enters the buffer zone, bombing hospitals and tent camps. Once again, the government of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is ordering many Gazans to leave their homes, while his finance minister announces that Gaza will be completely destroyed within months, and his party colleague Moshe Saada calls for the starvation and expulsion of all Gazans. Israel has already killed at least 53,000 Palestinians, including at least 15,000 children. He continues. At the same time, it remains a loaded term because of its connection with the Holocaust. In their editorials, newspapers carefully dance around the concept. On social media, it is also referred to as genocide, and it's misspelled, as you can see here, because some tech companies are banning the word. The foreign affairs spokesman of the German CDU told NRC that he does not believe in the theory of genocide. Oh, well, that's cute. He does not believe in the theory. Thank you, sir. We don't really care what you believe, though. We believe in the facts. And so they asked the question in this article, is Israel committing genocide here? The conclusion that this is the case is no longer reserved for activists. The International Court of Justice considers it, quote, plausible. And where human rights organizations such as Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch and UN rapporteur Francesca Albanese previously spoke of genocide, the director of the NIOD now also speaks of genocidal violence. Other NIOD researchers had already spoken out. So it's taken long enough, but thank you for doing so. In the newspaper, they continue, but besides being a subject of social debate, genocide is also a subject of science. In that field of research, genocide studies does not see it as a yes or no question, but as a process, not a light switch, but a dimmer. In the words of Professor of Holocaust and Genocide Studies, Ugur Umit Ungor of the University of Amsterdam and the NIOD. He continues, the scientific research field of genocide studies does not see it as a yes or no question, but as a process. And contrary to public opinion, leading genocide researchers are surprisingly unanimous. The Netanyahu government, they say, is in that process of genocide, according to the majority, even in its final stages. This is why most researchers no longer speak only of genocidal violence, but of genocide. So people tried for a very long time to tiptoe around this by saying what they're doing is genocidal. It's genocide-ish. But now, as this newspaper is making clear, it is no longer genocidal violence, but it is genocide. And that's a big deal. So this is a big newspaper reporting that. It continues, however flawed since 1948, there has been a legal definition of genocide that all the great powers have been able to live with. Acts committed with intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, I think this is translated from Dutch on Google Chrome, so I don't know if ethnical is a word. But yeah, national, ethnic, racial, or religious groups as such. And then specifically, they lay out the conditions here. Killing members of the group, causing serious physical or mental harm to members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, taking measures intended to prevent births within the group, the forcible transfer of children from one group to another. We've seen all of these things in Gaza. NRC asked 7 genocide experts from 6 different countries about their own views and those of their colleagues. Quote, can I name someone whose work I respect who does not think it's genocide? No, there is no counter-argument that takes into account all the evidence, says Israeli researcher Raz Siegel. There are certainly still scientists who say it isn't genocide, says Ungor, but I don't know them, he says. There are, however, scientists who previously rejected the genocide label, but have since changed their mind such as Shmuel Lederman of the Open University of Israel. So even Israelis are starting to call it genocide. And this is taking place, this article, which is huge, it's taking place at a time when the tone is clearly shifting in mainstream media and these mainstream Western organizations. And so no one is beating around the bush anymore. Even close allies that have tried to cover for Israel, they can no longer do so. So let's take a look here at the Amnesty International. They've done a pretty good job over the years covering Palestine, but a lot of organizations, because they receive funding from the West and there's a lot of pressure from Zionists in the West, they've been tiptoeing around it as well. Well, on December 5th, Amnesty International investigation concludes Israel is committing genocide against Palestinians in Gaza. This was about 6 months ago, but it's part of this wave. So this is an article. Spanish ambassador receives formal reprimand after the prime minister says Israel is committing genocide. And he's referring, of course, to Pedro Sanchez, who said, "We do not trade with a genocidal state." The Spanish ambassador to Israel was summoned on Thursday for a formal reprimand at the foreign ministry in Jerusalem. Earlier on Wednesday, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez said, "We do not engage in trade with a country committing genocide." And then Human Rights Watch reported Israel's crime of extermination, acts of genocide in Gaza. And then, of course, you have David Lammy of the United Kingdom. This guy has been just covering for Israel the entire time. Even he has had to condemn the Israeli minister's threat to bring total devastation to Palestinians. Can you imagine that? They're not committing genocide, but they just make these genocidal statements. You know, like, how can I judge their intent? Pay attention to what they're saying about what their intentions are, which is what just happened here. The remarks come after a British national was wounded in an Israeli strike on a UN compound in Gaza. Let's go ahead and read here. It says, intent in the genocide case against Israel is not hard to prove. A database of over 500 statements showing Israeli incitement to genocide provides ample evidence of genocidal intent. So what are they referring to? They are referring to, there is this website that has documented all these different statements from Israelis that make clear that their intent was genocide and ethnic cleansing and just total annihilation. But like I said, it's part of this wave of groups that are reporting on this now. This was another Human Rights Watch article. Gaza, the latest Israeli plan, inches closer to extermination amid widespread starvation. Parties to genocide convention liable are failing to act. So, as you guys know, it's been about 74 days since any aid has entered Gaza. So no food, no medicine, no water, nothing has been allowed to enter. And we're just supposed to think that this is normal, and we're supposed to think that this isn't genocide. So this is the website I was telling you guys about. It's called Recorded Intent. You can Google it yourself. It's a registry of Israeli genocidal statements on Gaza. Now, even there are so many genocidal statements that even they have struggled to collect all of them. But I'm going to go ahead and just take a look at some of them for you. So here's one quote. "We, the soldiers of the Jewish People's Army on the right and the left, will not take off our uniforms until we wipe out and destroy Gaza." Until we wipe out and destroy Gaza. What does that sound like? Sounds like genocide, right? Well, let's keep looking at it because it gets worse, unfortunately. "Israel has no choice but to render Gaza into a place that is temporarily or permanently unfit for living." Oh, how lovely. Unfit for living. "The emphasis is on damage, not on accuracy." And that is in reference to the bombs that they drop. They're not trying to accurately take out Hamas senior leaders. They just want to produce damage, whether that's human damage in terms of killing people or blowing off their limbs and making them paralyzed and forcing them to have to leave to go get surgical care outside of the country because they've destroyed all the hospitals. But also damage to physical property like the hospitals and the infrastructure. They want to destroy the roads, and you guys know this already. Like, they just want to make it completely uninhabitable. They want to make it a place that is unfit for living, and they're saying that, right? So this is the easiest case ever. It's done, right? Open and shut case. This is genocide. "Indeed, accusing Israel of genocide has the collateral effect of diminishing..." Okay. So why am I bringing this up? Now, what does the ADL have to say about this? Now, the ADL, remember, the Anti-Defamation League, is supposed to protect Jews from anti-Semitism and document it and expose it, et cetera, but because most Jews are unfortunately Zionists, the ADL, like many other organizations that put on this front of protecting Jews, are actually seemingly more interested in protecting Israel. So let's take a look at the way that they like to handle the whole discussion or topic of genocide because, of course, as you guys know, Zionists think that only they can be genocided. When they say never again, they mean never again for them. They don't really care if it happens to other human beings. So, indeed, this is what the ADL wrote on their website. Accusing Israel of genocide has the collateral effect of diminishing real acts of genocide. Real acts. So what's happening to Palestine is not real, guys. It's imagined. It's perceived. It's fake. You guys are imagining it, okay? You see how they try to gaslight you? You're seeing it on camera, and they're talking about it, and you see their intentions, but it's not real, okay? You guys are just anti-Semitic. So, such as those that occurred in the Holocaust against Armenians in Rwanda, Bosnia, or Sudan. Now, why do they endorse some genocides and not others? It's because, well, some of the groups are competitors to Israel, and some of them are meaningless to Israel, and so they'll acknowledge it when it has no effect on Israel. But when it does, they won't acknowledge it, and that's why they pick and choose which genocides. And in this case, they don't even acknowledge the Palestinian genocide. So, furthermore, it's deeply concerning that Israel is often one of the only countries accused by activist groups of engaging in genocide. Do you see how, this is an argument they often make. They try to say, why are you focusing on us? What about, it's whataboutism. So reread that again, okay? It's deeply concerning that Israel is often one of the only countries accused by activist groups in engaging in genocide. Even though, literally right above that sentence, right above it, they list out the one against Armenians and Rwanda and Bosnia and Sudan. Okay, so you're not the only country. You're not one of the only countries. You are being accused of genocide because you are committing genocide. And you don't get to just say, well, what about, no, not what about them. What about you and what you're doing, right? So let's keep reading. This false claim singularly demonizes Israel. Okay, they're not even, I'm sorry I have to stop, but this is just so stupid, okay? Look at the quote, the sentence structure. They contradict themselves in the sentence structure. It doesn't make any sense. Okay? Again, they say it is concerning that Israel is often one of the only countries. Okay? So in that and right above it, they list out other countries. Okay? Then they complain that they are also mentioned alongside them. And then right below it, this false claim singularly demonizes Israel by accusing it of a crime. Okay, so they just fucking pointed out that other people have committed genocide and they don't appreciate being associated with them. And then they say it singularly accuses us. So you just mentioned that other people have been accused of genocide, and now you're complaining that only you are being accused of genocide when that's not the case. I guess it is if you're only being accused of genocide against the Palestinians because you're the ones committing them. It's not, I guess you could accuse the United States and the West of contributing to it, and some people do. And people are talking about bringing a case against them as well. But ultimately, you are the one responsible. It is your troops on the ground firing artillery shells into Gaza and it's your fighter jets who are dropping bombs on Gaza. And it's your soldiers that are putting out their wild videos where they are proud to share their crimes like the idiots they are. And so that's why we're talking about you in the context of genocide against the Palestinians. And then look how they frame it. This false claim singularly demonizes Israel by accusing it of committing a crime which has been suffered by the Jewish people, the people of Israel, and therefore some argue that this constitutes a perverse double standard. What the fuck are they talking about? This doesn't. He said these people are so delusional. They don't want to take any accountability. They're gaslighting. This is one collective body of narcissism. Israel is a walking body, a gigantic titan made up of millions of Jewish idiots, Jewish Zionist idiots that are just narcissistic. They're narcissists, okay? They don't want to take any accountability, and they're gaslighting you. What you're seeing with your own eyes isn't real. And they can't even make sense in their sentence structures or anything. And it's because their arguments make no sense. And it's just crazy. So what else do they say? While one may condemn particular Israeli policies or actions with regard to Palestinians, the fact remains that in no way has Israel engaged in any action with the intent to exterminate in whole or in part the Palestinian people. Okay, so they said that there's no evidence of intent, right? Okay. Well, you guys remember there's a website documenting their quotes that share their intent. We, the soldiers of the Jewish People's Army on the right and on the left, will not take off our uniforms until we wipe out and destroy Gaza. Sounds like intent, okay? What else? There's more. Again, let's see. Israel has no choice but to render Gaza into a place that is temporarily or permanently unfit for living. The emphasis is on damage, not on accuracy. Okay, so there is plenty of evidence. Okay, let's take a look at this one. Let's take a look at this quote. All right, you guys haven't seen this one yet. Do not show mercy unto Amalek. 1 second, guys. Hey, fingerprints? Oh, no, you're dropping off the water? Yeah. Okay, cool. Can you leave it out there? We'll come grab it. Thank you. Do not show mercy. Sorry, guys. Do not show mercy to Amalek. The U.S. also understood after 9/11 that it is necessary to speak in the language of power. Instead of concerning ourselves with innocent civilians in Gaza, we should talk about our people who have fallen. If I were the prime minister, I would wipe out Gaza with Jericho missiles and heavy artillery. Oh, my God. These people are sick monsters.